thank you, Nick, for being here and for taking time out of your very busy schedule. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Most welcome. So the cloud's role in, Nick, the new Afterword you've written to the big switch. How far have you come?
I think it's incredible to me when I think about how far we've come in the 3 years since the big switch came out. It was originally published in the beginning of 2008, now the beginning of 2011. And if you think about what's transpired then, I mean, I remember when the book came out, there was an enormous amount of skepticism in the IT industry, among CIOs, about the extent to which cloud computing would be adopted or would matter in the industry or in companies or even in society. And I think certainly at the level of attitudes, that's changed completely. I mean, I've gone out and I've been talking to CIOs and certainly people in the IT industry, in the acceptance of the fact that the cloud is going to be, the dominant model for IT delivery in the future, I think is pretty much universal now. There's still debate over, the degree to which different companies or different industries will build on the cloud, but it's pretty clear from both supplier side and buyer side that this is the big new area of investment and innovation in IT. And it's certainly clear that when you look at how individuals use computers, that more and more personal computing and consumer computing is being delivered through the cloud as well. So at the level of attitudes and acceptance of the idea of cloud computing, I think we live in a completely different world than the world of just 3 years ago.
Great. And you've got some very interesting concepts out there. You talk about one owns cloud, and you talk about a cloud in every pocket, and so you do believe that the cloud has made the big switch in the consumer space. It will take a while for it to make the big switch in the enterprise.
I think that's right. I mean, until recently, if you wanted to look at the cutting edge of computing, IT, you'd look at big companies because those were the ones who were investing in the latest and greatest hardware and software and services and so forth. Today, that's very different. I think what we see with cloud computing is that the early adopters have been individuals, and really without even knowing, without even being conscious of the fact that they're pioneering this new mode of delivering IT services. But if I just think of my own experience or my kids' experience, 5 years ago, and certainly 10 years ago, personal computing was very much centered on the hard drive in your computer, in your PC, and that's where you loaded up your applications and so forth, and your data and everything ran from there. Today, for kids, but for everyone really, your first instinct when you're doing personal computing, whether it's on a traditional PC or a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone, is not to go out and buy a standalone piece of software and install it on your hard drive. It's to go out into the cloud, onto the net, and usually you find what you need in terms of data, application, services, and often you find it for free. And if you think about the whole social networking movement, think about Facebook and Twitter, these are all really based on cloud computing, on shared infrastructure, shared applications, shared data. And so the kind of cloud revolution, I think, has already happened in personal computing, in home computing, and companies have been actually a little slower, and for good reasons, because they have so much invested in past models of computing that they're not as flexible as individuals because they have so much investment in the past. Right. And so some companies have been quicker than others to adopt cloud services. But in general, I think because of past investments in the corporate world, the cloud will be adopted over the course of many years.
That's a great point, and I completely agree with the point that you say that the pace of clouds, if you go too fast, you'll actually make a mistake. But if you go too slow, you'll also be at a disadvantage, and that's a great point that you make.
Right. I think as I said, I think in the corporate level, the CIO level, people have gotten past skepticism You know, they all accept that the cloud is here and it's going to make a big difference. It is making a big difference, or it's going to make a big difference. But there's still a danger of being complacent. And I hear this, among some CIOs that they still think the cloud will just be kind of in many ways, a small addition to traditional computing. You know, maybe they'll use it for mobile computing, mobile services, mobile apps. But I do think that there's a danger in being too complacent, and that doesn't mean that I think it would be wise for every company to, try to move too quickly to the cloud. But I do think that, all businesses should realize that this is going to be a fundamental shift in the nature of computing. And you really need to start planning and experimenting now with all the different capabilities and stay on top of the transition, because you don't want to fall behind, because you'll put yourself at a disadvantage.
Right. Great point. So you have written the afterword to the big switch. What next, Nick?
Well, that's a good question. I've been spending a lot of time on the cultural and social and intellectual implications of the internet through my book The Shallows, and talking about that at the same time. And I've tried to continue to look at how the big switch is playing out in the afterword as part of that effort. I'm not sure what's next. I'm very interested in how dependent we're all becoming on software. In many good ways to make things more efficient, more convenient, but also in ways that are a little bit troubling, that a lot of kind of the intellectual struggles we've had that create kind of new thinking and new learning are being made a little maybe too easy from software. So one area I'm interested in looking into is kind of the history of software and how it's influenced not only the way people think, but the way people learn, and what becomes important and what becomes less important in society.
Great, Nick. So thank you so much for your time, and all the best for your afterword, and we really appreciate your insight and your comments.
Thanks very much, Anubhav.